I just had the minutes and now I can't. Anyways. Everybody ready?
Eden, will these screens change? Okay.
I will call the meeting of the Cumberland County Finance Committee of January 27th to order. And our first item of business is to approve the minutes. Just had it.
Just a reminder, we amended the agenda this morning to include the January 6th minutes that I had emailed out to everyone yesterday.
I just had it.
It's these December 9th minutes and the January 6th.
I would take a motion for the December meeting.
So moved.
Second. Second, any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor?
I think because we probably will have to do a roll call vote because we have two members that, even though the screens aren't showing, they're on Zoom and they can hear us. Can you hear us, Tim and Connie? Okay, so probably a roll call vote. And so, Sarah?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Connie? Connie? Tim?
Yes.
Connie? Show the vote 5-1.
5-1.
Actually, let's go 5-0, 1 abstain.
Yes, okay. And then a minutes for January 6th.
Move for them to be approved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? We will call roll call for the vote.
Sarah?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes?
Karen?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Connie? Show the vote 5-0 with 1 abstain.
You voted yes on that one, Jim.
Oh, she did? I'm sorry, we don't have the screens here.
I can see what the first one she had to abstain because she wasn't at that one, but she did vote yes. I could see it on my screen here.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
She says she can't unmute herself. Both
Oh.
will not. So if you could, maybe you could unmute her, Jim.
You can see. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty as we have you on Zoom, but we have a screensaver up on our monitors right now. So we're unable to see you two. So that's 6-0.
All right, minutes have been approved. Before we get into new business, is there anything anybody wanted to bring up under old business, or anything that was outstanding from the last meeting? No?
I just want to mention something.
Yes.
One of the ideas we had at our last meeting was to keep a running list of the things that we had talked to the department heads about. And so I have started a running list based on my notes, and I think they're consistent with the minutes that just came out. And at some point in the future, I suppose at the end of all of our meetings, we can get together and talk through the things that are keeping track of.
All right, that would be great. Would be great. All right. right, the first item on our new business is department presentations, and the first one up is the IT department, Information Technology. Jim?
Thank you. Yes, Aaron Gilpatrick, the Director of Information Technologies, is here to give an overview of the IT functions for the county. And I'll stop there before I take too much thunder out of his presentation and allow Aaron to kick it off. It's all you, Aaron.
Thank you. My name is Aaron Kirkpatrick. I am the IT Director for the county. A little bit about the IT department. We service all county departments' IT needs. We have 5 staff members, including myself. I have a systems administrator. We have a public software specialist and GIS coordinator. And then we have 2 technical support positions. We service over 469 active user accounts right now throughout the county domain. We have about 125 user accounts for outside agency personnel. These are outside municipalities that partner with the county through the Regional Communications Center. We have about 413 active email accounts. We have about 450 computers overall that we are responsible for, 291 laptops versus 141 desktops. That number that ratio is really inverted since COVID. Prior to COVID, no one did virtual meetings. No one worked from home. So there's been quite a shift in the IT landscape, over just the last few years. We have about 46 servers, 112 printers, copiers. We have wireless access points, switches, firewalls, smart devices, cameras, door security, video doorbells. The Internet of Things is here to stay as more and more devices become connected.
Are there cell phones in this thing too?
I did not tally up cell phones. I did not.
That's not part of your department?
Not really part of my department. That's more of an individual department by department thing. Expense, yep. We do have a ticketing system, so we can keep track of requests that come in. And last year, we completed 3,294 tickets. So just some little stats about us and what we do. I'm sure you've looked down through the budget and noticed one line in particular, seems to be a lot larger than it was last year. That is the maintenance line. Maintenance contracts industry-wide are shifting to what's known as a SaaS or subscription model. Typical, historically, you would have an upfront purchase to buy a software package or server or some type of expenditure, and then you would have a yearly maintenance fee on that would cover support from the manufacturer as well as software updates, bug fixes, that sort of thing. The entire industry is shifting from that model into a software as a service model, where you pay a predictable flat rate, so to speak, over the entire term of the contract that you have. So as each of our various vendors are shifting to this model, we're seeing our maintenance line increase because of this new fee structure. And it's not all occurring at once. There are some vendors that have been pushing this more aggressively than others. But this year we saw one of our bigger maintenance lines convert over to this model, and thus why we see a bigger increase. We see here kind of the difference versus the old model versus the new. Again, these are reoccurring monthly fees. They're predictable. There's not a kind of a wild variance from year to year. So budgeting wise, it makes it easier to plan. But again, getting into this new agreement model, we see this first year kind of impact. And really, that's about all I had for a slideshow. If there are any specific questions regarding anything in my budget, I'll be glad to answer them.
I guess I'll start. I get an upgrade on my phone all the time. It's never better. It's never better. It worked fine. It worked fine 10 years ago. And you talk about these continuous upgrades. Are we getting better for the cost? And if not, can we, we need this ongoing yearly.
Where you really see the benefit is when you can identify what's changed and then actively exploit that for your own purposes. So we see updates all the time, but if you're not harnessing that new feature and you're not extracting the potential out of it, it does seem like this upgrade wasn't worth it. Why am I paying this money at all? I would say over the last few years, I have seen an enormous value add to these upgrades that we're getting, especially now that we're starting to see some of these different AI technologies, new features harnessing that power get introduced into our software platforms. I see an enormous benefit. And I hear a lot of feedback as the different users start using these new products and these new little features. And I hear them tell me like, oh, wow, this is great. This saved me a whole bunch of time. I was able to do this giant spreadsheet in half the time versus the old way. So in my opinion, from what I have seen, yes, the new upgrades are worth it. They are saving staff time, reducing a lot of, manual clerical things.
Question about the maintenance contract. I'm sorry, did you have a follow-up?
Nope, no.
Sorry. The maintenance contract line, so it's 6514. So I see the software packages broken down, and they add up to $715,000. And I see that's in the preliminary recommendation, which I read as the manager's recommendation. Is that right, Jim?
Yes.
Okay. But the amount that was in the budget request was $70,000 higher. Can you tell me what got taken out?
That was a Dell server payment that we opted to move that over to a reserve in the FY27 budget so that we can try to reduce that tax impact and take care of a year's worth of the 5-year Dell payment through the reserve account.
So is the idea not to buy it for another year?
No, we have it currently.
Right.
We've made a payment this year, and we have 4 more years of making a payment.
Okay, so instead of making it from the IT budget, it's being put into the capital reserve to be paid from
It
there?
will be a reserve. That $70,000, $75,000 will come out of a reserve versus coming out of the budget.
Okay. If I'm looking at the budget, where do I see those reserves?
They would not be in there.
Okay, so how would I see the impact on the budget?
The reserves are money that's been set aside outside of the general fund budget.
Okay, so where did the
There's-
70,000 come from?
Excuse me?
Where did the $70,000 come from?
It came from the commissioners authorizing staff to move a certain amount of money over to capital purchases.
So is it just money that is in your accounts right now that hasn't been used yet?
And it's from FY25, year-end FY25.
Thank you. No one else has questions, I have another? Okay. How do you figure out how many computers to have available, whether they're desktops or laptops, given the number of employees there are? Because you've got, I think, about 450 computers and about 400 employees. How does that work?
So the 400 employee number is the number of employees more or less on county payroll. We, being the IT department, provide services to people technically not on the county payroll, example being the ADAs in the district attorney's office. Those lawyers are paid directly by the state, but the county still supplies computer equipment for them and all their office needs. So you have to tack on 40-ish, lawyers for the ADA's office into that number of computers that we have to maintain. Another example is the jail medical division. Those staff are not county employees, they're third-party contractors, but we still provide computers that they use to document charts and whatnot for patients at the jail. Again, we have to maintain that equipment. So that's kind of where the numbers fluctuate a little bit there. There's also, some, I don't want to say duplication, but there may be some departments that have an extra laptop or two kicking around for training purposes or meetings or some of that. So the numbers aren't a direct one-to-one to the employees.
And there's no extra computers lying around that can be taken off the rolls or,
So we keep everything on a rather strict, or at least we try, 5-year rotation. I've got it all in the inventory in the database, and every year we try to make sure that year 5, those computers get decommissioned, they come off the roll, so to speak, and they are replaced as needed.
Thank you.
There's a pretty significant increase in the maintenance contracts requested.
Yes.
A little bit, almost doubling.
So the maintenance contracts, again, is partially affected from the conversion to the subscription models that I spoke about earlier. But we're also looking in here at several new lines that are maintenance agreements for software that, for different departments in the county. So we can see in here that there is a maintenance line for facility software. There's a maintenance line in here for the Axon Justice software that the district attorney office uses. So that's some of the other increases is our maintenance agreements for other departments that are coming out of my budget. We can also see the telephone line. There's been some consolidation of telephone charges. Typically, each department had their own phone bill. Earlier this year, became aware of some rapidly increasing price fees related to copper lines for faxes and whatnot. So we've kind of consolidated those charges into my budget where they can be more closely monitored. We're addressing some of those charges that, do you really still need a fax here? And so we're cutting some of those out. So that's why you see that increase in that telephone line. It looks like a net increase, but there's a net decrease coming out of other departments to make up for it.
Okay, I've got another question. So the budget item 6503, computer software and supplies. So I'm reading across from left to right, I'm looking at
Yeah, that one looks.
25, okay, what happened to the actual expense in 24,
So,
25,
yeah.
and why are we level
If we look up,
funding it?
To the 6301 professional services, there was an invoice that rolled through that basically got charged to the wrong account. It got charged against software supply, but it really should have got charged against professional services.
Okay,
So that's why that one looks funky.
Jim, I'm going back to cell phone for just a minute. Where does that fall in the budget?
It would fall into individual departments. I will say that not, the majority of department staff do not have cell phones. It really ranges depending upon their job function.
I'm assuming that everybody in the sheriff's department has one.
Yes.
And that's their own cost center, and they have their own IT person?
No, Aaron's crew does IT services for the sheriff's office. But they do have their own line for cell phones. Yep.
so they're paying for the cell phones, but IT is maintaining them.
Yes.
Anybody online have any questions?
Unplug your thing.
Oh.
Looks like she does, but she cannot unmute.
Oh, yeah.
Can she type her questions? Can go and type her questions? She's yes, she can unmute.
All right, anybody else? Everybody seems to be good.
Connie, do you want to type a question? Type a
Can you type
question?
it, we'll read it.
You did.
It's in the chat.
Is there a question in the chat, Eden?
Still waiting for Kathy to answer my stuff.
I guess we can't, oh, there's the chat right there.
There we go.
And so I think the question is, are you confident in your cybersecurity measures? Does your budget include cybersecurity training for your users?
So we do have a couple of lines in here that address cybersecurity software as well as cybersecurity monitoring. We don't have training in there specifically for the end users. However, the state has a cybersecurity grant project that has been established that will fund that. So we're kind of in a little bit of a waiting scenario where we're waiting for the state really hasn't released a lot of rules around this. So we're kind of waiting for the state to give us the information so that we can apply and then get those funds and establish a training program.
I'll get one more question. Do you operate in a silo? Do you have any coordination with other counties? Do you have other coordination with the towns? And is there the opportunity for us to, as a Cumberland County, to regionalize some of these licensing agreements, purchasing agreements with software and hardware? What can be done to make us more efficient?
So I am in contact with IT departments that are in some of the towns in Cumberland County. I do have statewide contacts as well through other counties, other municipalities. We are continually looking at ways that we can collaborate on things. The best example are members of the Regional Dispatch Center, including Cumberland, where they utilize our dispatching services, but also they utilize our CAD software and our records management system software. So for those agencies that are part of the dispatch center, you know, they're kind of riding underneath our license, as it were. So we're always looking for ways that we can partner like that. And as part of this new subscription model for our Motorola vendor, there are new products that have come out in some of these releases that we are working right now to get rolled out to those member agencies, that hopefully these new products that we basically already own will allow the other municipalities perhaps to save money by discontinuing a different paid product that they're using now.
Is there any effort by the state to help us at all? Or is there any conversation going on at that level?
I mean, I don't want to say no, but I'm also not aware of any that would directly relate to your question. Usually these type of conversations happen kind of at a department by department level. I'm sure that dispatch, well, I know that dispatch has a lot of contacts at the state and a lot of contacts with other agencies, and as IT topics come up, you know, Melinda will loop me into the conversation to see if there's a way that we can all work together. So those conversations exist. I just, at this moment, I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Are there other opportunities outside of where we're already working together at a dispatch center? For example, and there will be many examples of the different softwares that we all use, but the one that's coming to mind, for example, is Munis. It's one of the ways that municipalities operate. Is there any savings to be had by having, one license and many users being the municipalities around the county?
We haven't had those conversations with Munis, for example. However, the district attorney's office is partnering with MEDATS, which is a quasi-state agency, and all the other district attorney's offices in the state, and regionally, the entire state, including the JAG office, I think maybe, are all moving to the same records management platform for their prosecution cases. That project is underway, has been underway for a couple of years now. They're making good progress. I believe this fall, they're supposed to go live with it. So there are other projects in other departments that are working at a state and regional level to consolidate together.
I
But
understand
Munis,
those are departments at the county level, but I'm talking about us, what do I mean? Customers.
Municipalities. Yeah, customers.
Is there any way to help us with what we're doing with IT licenses? And are there any savings that you could help us with so that we can regionalize and have some savings?
I guess those conversations really haven't been had a lot. We have certain agencies, again, that we partner with a lot, and because we get to know them, then we start having those deeper conversations. So I suppose the answer is we'd love to be a partner if we know that somebody else wants to work with us.
We'll meet.
We're going to give you that opportunity.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I think Connie has a question up there. Is that grant available to towns as well?
It is, yes. The cybersecurity program, it is a statewide to all municipalities. Yep. And we can, I can put you in touch with some people if you're interested.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Aaron.
Second item of business is the Cross Insurance Center.
Yes, we have Cross Insurance Arena up next. General Manager Mike LeConte is here to, Mike, you have a seat on the table if you like.
Oh,
That's the hot seat right there. Mike is here to talk a little bit about the operations at the arena. It's a different animal. Just to give you a little backdrop, when the arena was first built back in 1976, 1977, it was a special law through state statute that governed the arena, and there was the development of a board of trustees. The trustees ran the arena, day-to-day functions up until 2017, in which the county then moved forward in changing the special law to make the board of trustees a advisory board, and the county took full control over the arena. This was after years and years of losses, and when the arena ends the year on a loss, the arena passes the warrant over to the county, and the county covers the loss. And so the commissioners had directed myself to move in the direction of changing state statute, in which we were successful on. And so since 2017, the assets of the arena are Cumberland County's, and there is a management company, which Mike is an employee of the management company, OBG 360. They do the day-to-day management for the county at the arena. So that's a little history. How does the arena play into the general fund budget before you this evening? There was a citizen-approved bond back in 2012 that was out for, I believe it was like $33 million. That got voted through, and that provided a rehabilitation of the arena that you see today. And so that sits within the general fund budget. as well as a couple of small bonds that we assumed when we took over the Cross Insurance Arena back in 2017. There was also a small budget for the trustees in the general fund, and that budget includes, there's an annual incentive for the management company if they meet their certain benchmarks and goals in a year. There's also insurances that we have to have, and I think there's a few dollars in there for parking at the Spring Street garage next to the arena. So that's really what's in the general fund budget. What makes up the majority of the budget to run operational costs at the arena is a budget that Mike prepares every March and April, runs it through the trustees who make a recommendation to the county commissioners, and the county commissioners approve sometime in June every year. And that is the Cross Insurance Arena operational budget, which is largely based on Mike bringing in revenue sources from either booking of acts, sponsorships, food and beverage, and I'm gonna stop there because I'm taking Mike's thunder away from him, so.
Just one question. The website, county website shows up the Board of Trustees. Are those people appointed by the commissioners?
Yes, there are five district trustees and 2 at large. And they are all appointed by the county commissioners. When there's a vacancy, there's an application process that takes place, and the commissioners bring forth a name for their appointment. So, Mike?
Thanks, Jim. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Mike Loconti, General Manager of the Cross Insurance Arena. Coming into my 4th year as GM. I've been there 10 years full-time. Moving into this newest year, we've developed a way to, it's kind of like an incubator, trying to get the content to come to the building, hopefully have it do well, and then make that content come back again for subsequent years. It's a difficult task. We do it with Disney. Obviously, you hear them coming back every year. But even that, everything is always intertwined with customer demand, the fees from Ticketmaster, the logistics for the show to be pulled off efficiently so that the labor bill is within their budgetary limits. So long story short on that, I don't want to say it's a cookie cutter template that I have, but it is, the way we do it is we try to bring them in, try to make any existing content happy with what we're providing for infrastructure and for labor and production. But I'm constantly trying to get new agents involved from countrywide to learn more about our building. Promoters that are out there, a lot of them from obviously the south or west, they don't even know we exist. So I do get on many Oakview group calls and introduce myself and let them know that there's a fantastic 5,000-seat arena in Portland, Maine, and they should consider coming up here. So the last 3 years we've done well. We've been in the black, which was great because for roughly 20 years prior, we would end up in the red at the end of our fiscal that ends on June 30th. This year that we're working in right now is tight. There's not a lot of acts that are out there right now that fit the arena size that they're looking for. A lot of the bigger names, the rock names, country names, are going to either outside or huge places like Gillette so that they can, sell 70,000 tickets as opposed to 5 in our arena. So we've been doing a great job to this point. We always start with a goal of 100 events a year. You can look back through the history. Some years we've had 79, other years we've had 130. And it doesn't necessarily equate to success. It could have been very successful with 79, depending on what acts and how they performed and what revenue did they generate. So for instance, this year we're in the middle of the hockey season, almost to the halfway point with the Mariners. We've made some tremendous strides as far as bringing our food and beverage offerings to a new level with more and better offerings, which do impact the per caps, which obviously impacts the bottom line in a positive way. We've put efficiencies in place as far as we went cashless a few years ago. being cashless really has brought us to another level as far as offerings and efficiencies and speed of the transaction when the folks are getting their popcorn, beer, soda, whatnot. So hockey's doing really well this year so far. Our per caps normally hover around $15 a person. Right now, we're hovering at $17 a person. If that maintains, that will equate to an additional $200,000 in revenue from food and beverage that we split with the team. So every campaign that we put together and every package we put together really does count, and we do our best to maximize with what we have. We have to be very careful. Everyone's always like, how come you don't have lobster rolls or X, Y, and Z? Cost of goods sold, right? The margins on those are very high to maintain them and keep them fresh and to deliver them properly. It just wouldn't work for our model. We need something that is going to be quick through the efficiencies of making it as well as getting through the line quickly. So again, we're not exactly the best of the best right now, but I think we've made huge strides in improving the layout. We have 2 new grab-and-go offerings on each side. We have a Spring Street and a Free Street side. With the brand-new grab-and-go layout and infrastructure, we put about $20,000 into that. Aesthetically, it looks great. We have signage on the walls. We have entryway signs that glow. We have brand new bike rack that we've outfitted with some Cross Insurance Arena decor that looks good to make it look a little bit, nicer, classier, cleaner. So that's another thing contributing to hockey doing really well this year so far. As far as the future, my crystal ball, I think this year is going to end up status quo. Originally, the trustees approved a loss of this current fiscal year of approximately $300,000. The forecast as it stands right now will land at about a loss of $100,000. So that is a $200,000 swing in our favor. But there's still a chance because we have not pulled the trigger on several events that we're working on right now to hopefully land within this fiscal, which will offset that additional number that's in the red and hopefully impact us enough so that we can get to into the black, even if just a little bit. But then again, that takes the hopeful efficiency and time and getting a show together and getting it proved and getting it programmed with Ticketmaster and getting it online so that we can sell it, and then hopefully we sell more tickets than what I am projecting. So for this year, just in a nutshell, the forecast is roughly a $100,000 loss, which again is a $200,000 swing from obviously a $300,000 loss, which we're trying to avoid. Next year is looking very good, 26, 27. I have so much content that I'm working on. I wish I could steal a few and bring it back to this particular fiscal, but can't make that happen. But 26, 27 is looking special because 2027 is the 50th anniversary of the building. And we're developing a subcommittee now to start diving into not only like what content do we want to bring to celebrate, but what do we want to do aesthetically to the building to really mark the building on the success it's had over 50 years, and where we are now is pretty awesome as a building. I know we've done some upgrades to the building, but it was built in 1976. We started on March 15th, 1977 with ZZ Top, and we haven't looked back since then. So it does clean up well, it does show well. It takes a lot of work and a lot of money to keep it running the way it currently stands. But that's my job as well, not only to drive the content to create revenue, but to really dive into the variable expenses that are impacting a lot of our bottom line, such as our HVAC system is costing more this year than any other year. And that is just pieces are getting older and systems break. And so we're in the middle of trying to mitigate a few things to not have to spend a fortune to try to fix it. But that is part of what offsets the revenue coming in. I'm trying to reduce the expenses as well to get us to that bottom line that we're looking for to hopefully end up into the black if we can. But that's how it's run. This is just real like high level stuff. I don't know if you have any particular questions about events or expenses or anything that you wanna discuss further.
You have a certain amount of full-time employees, and then you have contract employees.
So, yeah, yep, we have 13 full-timers and 173 part-timers,
They're called in for events as needed.
as needed, yeah.
So they're subcontractors, or they?
They're employees, they're on our payroll,
And benefits?
not the part-timers, just the full-timers. Yeah.
So you mentioned last year you were targeted to operate $300,000 under, and you're now going to be $100,000 under. What was it that made you assume that? And was it really just the content? You weren't confident that you were going to get the right content in to get the revenue? Or it's just interesting to me to hear that there was a plan to be that far under. And I would assume the plan should always be to at least break even. And so it's just interesting to me. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah, historically, it's been far worse than that. I think for the few years before I came aboard, it was negative 500, negative 600. So going into what we're doing now, yeah, it's not awesome to project a loss.
Yeah.
But the building is approaching $3 million to maintain it, run it, keep it running the way it does. If you don't book enough content or sign enough sponsorship deals to offset that, it's a guaranteed, you're not gonna be making money, and you're not gonna get to even a break even fiscally. So without knowing who's gonna get signed to play, how many tickets they're gonna sell, how many fans are gonna buy 2 beers. Like, there's no way to really prognosticate what's gonna actually happen. So I'm conservative in my approach that if I'm unable to land the number of events that I want, we're gonna fall into that status of being, okay, we need, almost $3 million to run the building.
Yeah.
So that's where that comes into play, and that's how it's been with all my predecessors.
Yeah.
And I do approach it a little bit more aggressively because I enjoy chasing content and bringing acts and events to Portland, Maine. So it's a passion of mine, so.
So is this type of arrangement that we have with the Cross Insurance Arena, is it the same arrangement that like Bangor has with their arena, or is it different?
No, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, they use Oakview Group
It's the
as
same
well.
management company up there, and it's the same kind of budget process.
And they're a bigger arena, right? So, or do they?
No, they're about the same
Yeah.
arena-wise, but they have the whole conference center.
Yeah.
So that's their moneymaker. That is booked for years out by people that use it every year for their conferences. So.
Question?
Jim was town manager, city manager of South Pole,
Yeah.
and while under his direction, they built a kitty, if you will, of 20% capital reserves for. Are you budgeting money, year to year for that downturn? Because it would seem to me that, to come to the county and say, I need $100,000 because I'm $100,000 short, I made $200,000 last year, are we budgeting for those or not?
We're trying to forecast closely what's gonna be at the end of the year, but I'll let Jim speak on what he was about to.
Yeah, the last couple of years, we've made a profit, but it's been very marginal. I believe last year was about $60,000, $64,000. That money stayed in the arena because typically the lights go off in July every year, because everything starts getting pushed outside. Mike's done a great job over the last couple of years in getting some acts in August, which historically, the arena's been dark July and August, but Mike's been pushing for getting the lights turned back in August to ramp up the season the last couple of years. But that $60,000 just covered staffing, operational costs for July, really, last year, and probably the first half of August, until that first act came in. Other than that, there was a year that Mike hit a home run, and it was a $700,000 profit. We had everyone from Indiana basketball in the arena to Cooper Flag to, Mike found the unicorn that year. And that $700,000 did come over into the county's coffers. We just put it into the undesignated fund balance. We didn't tuck it over to any type of reserve account. It just went into unassigned fund balance. So the short answer to your question is no, we're not piling some cash off to the side to try to offset any losses. The dollar amount that we do budget for has some accommodations in it, some flexibility that if there is a $100,000 loss, it could largely be covered by that, but for the most part, we're not slugging cash away to cover the downturn of a given year.
Mike, could you speak to the impact of the Portland city government's decision to have an entertainment license that would impose a 2% fee on all of your tickets? I've heard rumors that student sport events that would have taken place there are going to pull out. And I don't know how that's impacting your view of the future, your forecast.
Great question. Yeah, it's.
Can we sue?
Jim, no. Yeah, so the promoters of the world, and that includes student sports and local community events, have heard of the percentage that they're putting out there that they could be adding on to the ticket. And I have gotten several calls from my biggest promoters, like what's going on? We can't have that. It didn't put us in a very good light that it's going to cost customers even more to come to the building, because the number one complaint I get, well, next to parking, is the fees from Ticketmaster. And here we're going to add another tax on top of it. It's going to put us in a tough position. It's not insurmountable, but it definitely does not bode to landing a show easily with the promoter that's apprehensive, or trying to placate a customer or group or a number of groups that want to buy tickets and could or may not make them happy, and maybe they don't come back or sign with us. Maybe they'll go to a different building that doesn't have that tax. So to answer your question, I think it's not a done deal from what I understand. I think they're working on how to implement.
Yeah, it's implementation.
Yeah, so we're strategizing on the best way to, how do I do this so that I don't cost the building a promoter or a show? Do I align my finances for a particular show so that I can absorb the cost of that percentage so that I don't have to pass it on to a promoter or to an agent or to an artist? But then I have to absorb it, and what did that do to my bottom line? Because I can't go under, because now all of a sudden I'm leaning on the county to help subsidize any loss that I might create by doing that.
Are you exempted from property taxes?
We're tax exempt. The building itself it's a county government building.
No offense to my colleagues from the city of Portland, but I'm surprised that this is happening. No?
Where's the money going? Like, what is it, the actual
So
tax?
performance trust fund, essentially. It's going to go, we haven't decided the path it'll go, probably go through the Development Corporation, and go to support the entertainment sector in Portland.
Is there a sunset clause on this? Just forever? Like an infinity kind of thing? Okay, just asking.
Yeah.
Sometimes when something's new, they have a waiting period.
But it doesn't, well, it's not implemented until the second renewal date, and I think you had said for your next renewal is.
May of 2027.
Yeah, so May of 2027, so that's the, time for us to do the rulemaking, for lack of a better word.
But not a sunset clause?
No.
Like an ending date, okay.
So we have a reprieve for it going into effect until the spring of 2027?
Yes.
So for the deficit that you may operate in, is that just part of the general fund and municipalities cover it, or like however it's determined? I mean, I would argue, I don't know if it's possible, but if Portland is putting in policies that is putting your guys at risk, I would like to see Portland somehow take on the ownership of any impact of that. So I don't know if that's something that could be done from a policy perspective, because to me, it sounds like if I can't add a tax to you to cover the deficit in Scarborough, and then another municipality is creating the risk, I don't understand why the rest of us are bearing that risk.
I think we could have that discussion with social services in the Portland area that Portland.
We sure could, yes, we've got, yeah. Only about a third of folks in our shelter system are from Portland, and that's actually probably rounding up. So, yeah, it's a good point, thank you.
I think there's a fair argument, we've talked about it before, of having the county be more responsible for spreading needs, such as shelters for homeless people unhoused. But for the same reason, any tax on an arena that is funded and supported by the county really should be a county-level tax. It's unfortunate that one of our communities is taxing something that.
It's a fee, it's not a.
I understand it was created as a fee, but in effect, it's a tax because it's percentage. It's not, you have to take out a permit and you have to pay, this amount of money for it. It's, we are now we are taking 1 or 2% of your base ticket fee. And that feels like a tax to me as opposed to a fee. The fee would be, to me, the initial outlay of money to get the permit, not an ongoing, based on how you're doing, payment, which feels more of like a income-related or revenue-related tax. And I feel like you're sitting out of this conversation intentionally.
Yeah.
I can't even see him. There he is.
Sit back.
Which is just, I'm learning so much about, I had no clue that you guys were part of the county. And so just understanding that kind of public-private partnership is really interesting. And then hearing that it's not operating always, but sometimes it sounds like in the black, which again is, I'm sure it's always the goal, but can't help the environment and stuff. But yeah, no, it's interesting.
Connie, any questions? Tim? Can't see you.
No, I'm good, thank you.
He's on mute.
Tim, do you have a question?
No, I just unmuted myself. I'm good. This has been very helpful.
Okay.
It's killing Steve that he can't unmute.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Yeah.
I wish you the best,
Thank you.
$100,000 at least.
I'm with you. I promise you, as soon as I leave here, I will be working on it.
Let you know what we can do to help.
Yeah, thank you.
Buy tickets.
And
Yeah.
lots of food and beverage.
Does it buy 2 more beers? Yeah.
All right, all right. Our next presentation is from the Sheriff's Department. Jim, do you want to open this up?
Sure. Sheriff Joyce and his command staff are here this evening. The sheriff will, as well as the Chief Deputy Pellerin, will take the lead table here. The sheriff's office is made up of a couple of different budgets. You have the sheriff admin budget, you have the sheriff law enforcement budget, the sheriff civil division budget, and the jail. So I believe the sheriff has a PowerPoint presentation to guide you through some conversation. And I do have, and I will pass out the jail budget that I had emailed out to all of you last week, but Bob asked for paper copies. And so I listened to Bob, and so I'll walk around with these.
Is it any different than the one you previously sent us?
No, not yet. But I guess maybe we'll just start off with the sheriff's PowerPoint presentation and just go from there. But I bet there's gonna be plenty of questions.
Good evening. Before I start out, I want to introduce my command staff that I have here. We have Captain Smith in the front row, left to right. Captain Dean Fredericks, Smith is doing grants and,
Thank you.
accreditation and hiring and stuff. Captain Fredericks is our criminal investigation captain. Captain Demers is in charge of security at the jail. In the back row, Captain Eric Fragon is in charge of programming in the jail. Captain Kerry Joyce is the patrol captain, and then next to him is the jail administrator, Major Tim Coates. So we're a Triple Crown Sheriff's Office, which there's very few in the United States. What does that mean? That we have CALEA accreditation, which is law enforcement accreditation, which we got in 2015. We have American Correctional Association accreditation, which we initially got in 2001. Going back to CALEA, we're one of only 5 agencies in the state of Maine that are accredited law enforcement-wise, nationally. ACA accreditation, we're one of 3 in the state of Maine. We were the first in the state of Maine, but one of 3 currently that are accredited through National Correction Association. 2005, we also upped our ante and went for accreditation in inmate medical services. So through the National Commission on Correctional Healthcare, we were accredited there. And then in the bottom was something that initially in 2008 we went for, which was, it wasn't required, was Prison Rape Elimination Act. And then it became mandated in 2015 or so. So now every jail has to be prison rape elimination certified as well.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
With these accreditations, does this filter down to individuals in your staffing, or is it more of a administrative?
No, it trickles down. We have standards we have to meet, national standards. So, prior to this, we had policies and nobody really checked, you had a policy, you hoped everyone followed it. And if they screwed up, you went back and maybe you found somebody that didn't follow the policy. What accreditation is basically is the fact that you have to prove that you follow your policies. So there are things called proofs that have to be collected. There are reports. For instance, the state of Maine 2 years ago required this bias-based policing where we have to track and make sure that we're not racial profiling. We were already doing that because accreditation mandated it. So I would get a report annually on our traffic stops, and I would look at whether or not we were racially profiling, let's say. In the end, it should never come as a surprise because of these reports. I get them annually, have to review them and sign off, then they go in a file, and for accreditation for CALEA, every 4 years, somebody comes in from out of state and actually visits us and goes through our files. But annually, once a year, somebody remotely taps in too and starts looking at our standards and making sure we have these proofs. So there's about 200 standards we have to meet for law enforcement accreditation. There's about 400 proofs that we have to meet for American Correctional Association jail accreditation. There's about 47 really stringent proofs or standards that we have to meet for NCCHC, which is the healthcare. So we're proud of that because it was hard getting there, but now we just maintain it every year. And, sometimes, we had, especially with the law enforcement, was the last one, who is this group to tell us how to do our job? They don't tell you how to do your job. They just tell you the standards you gotta meet. 2020, after the riots, there were a number of people asking, what do we use force on and how many times do we use it? And do we use it on black people versus white people? It was pretty easy because at the first of the year, I'd gotten a report on how we use force, both in the jail separately and then in law enforcement. And I was able to go, hold on, wait a second, let me send you our use of force report. You can look at it. So again, I should never wake up and be surprised that I've got people abusing force because every year, annually, we go over it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it does trickle down. Some people like it and some people find it's a real pain in the neck, but I believe in it.
thank you.
So the next slide is basically our yearly calls for service. You can see it's gradually going up. I tell people that it used to kind of go up high pretty dramatically. Now we're spending more time, this is for law enforcement, we're spending more time at houses trying to mitigate mental illness. You know, the calls are going up, and as travelers drive through Cumberland County, et cetera, you know, we get the calls for service, but we're spending a lot of time on mental health calls, and fortunately enough, through the chief's efforts, we were able to get a mental health liaison started in August of 2025. She's completing her like 4th or 5th month, and we had her in just asking how things are going. Believe it or not, when we offer the assistance out and ask people if they want us to work with them or this person to get them some services, I was shocked to find out that a lot of people just don't want her assistance as well. So, you know, we're not the experts in mental illness, but we have a lot of connection with mental illness on a day-to-day basis, whether it's in law enforcement or in the jail.
I'm sorry, if I could just follow up.
Sure.
In this mental health liaison, you give people the option of whether they want to work with her, or does she come out with the officers?
Both. A lot of it's just follow-up as a result of the officer sending her an email saying, hey, I was at this residence, can you go out and just follow up? Or maybe a phone call or something like that. The individual is not funded through the county, it's funded through Opportunity Alliance, and they get their grant funding through a grant through the state. So a lot of it's just reaching out, just saying, hey, I know a deputy was there last night, anything I can do to help you out? And like I said, I'm finding out that a lot of times it's, no, I'm all set type thing. And so we'll still be at it. There are a lot of good things that this woman's doing after 4 or 5 months.
My town and 2 others are sharing a social worker right now, and I think she's more actively going to places in response to dispatch. I'm sure you're in contact, I'm Yarmouth, by the way. I'm sure you're in contact with the different models that are going on right now, but it does seem to help.
You want to handle it?
No, so this is a cooperative collaboration with the Opportunity Alliance. So this young woman that works for us is a social worker, and we are responding repeatedly to the same houses, the same problems, same crises, things like that. Things that aren't necessarily criminal involvement, but someone struggling either with mental illness, substance abuse, family issues, child issues, maybe a child might be acting out and things like that. So this person does have a radio. They have access to our calls for service. Our patrol officers are able to code a call if she's not at that particular call or on duty, and then that will make an automatic referral to her the next day that she's in. So a lot of times, our deputies just aren't always equipped. We can kind of handle the emergency and fix it with a Band-Aid right then and there, but really her expertise is to go in and really point people towards resources, find out a little bit more about what problems they might be facing, and kind of bring in other resources to the Opportunity Alliance. So, she's really the content expert. Like the sheriff said, when I started in law enforcement, if you were at a call for 15 minutes and on to the next one, that was pretty normal. We are at homes now for hours, and they're very significant. Obviously, with the yellow flag situation that's been in place for a few years now, that's very complex. If we run into a situation where we need to seek a court order to temporarily retain firearms, it's an 8 or 9 hour process. So that takes those officers off the road. So this has been really good. We're able to track. Part of the plan that we were able to put together was just to show the number of mental health calls that we were responding to in the county, and I think it was about 1,300 or 1,400 mental health calls that we just didn't have the assistance with. So this is really kind of a person to connect. This person also works with the folks in your community, works with other people with the Opportunity Alliance, works with the City of Portland. The City of Portland's mental health unit is made up of several different organizations. Some are city employees, some are Opportunity Alliance. Sweets is another organization that has folks. So really the network in the county has grown quite a bit to, I think just about every municipality is covered by some level, maybe with a different organization, but they do collaborate together. So that's probably a very long answer to your question.
Bob, is it possible to put the PowerPoint presentation up so folks that are watching from remote could see the PowerPoint presentation?
You're asking me that? I have 3 credit hours of IT.
Okay, thanks.
I'd like to just quick follow-up there. I know this really isn't budget related. When you make respond to a call and you involve this individual, a lot of these smaller towns, they don't have anything, but they typically do have a town manager. They may have a food pantry or things like that. Do you pass this on to the town leadership to, when there's an individual that's, or is it privacy concerns override that?
We have a really, sorry, Sheriff. We have a really good relationship with the towns throughout Cumberland County, and not just the towns that we cover for law enforcement services, but we work with the town of Cumberland a lot on a lot of different things. And really, it's just understanding what resources are available. Certainly Portland, South Portland, those are communities that provide probably the most services within the county just because of their size and the assets that they have in their city. But, anything that we can do as far as directing someone to healthcare, food pantries. I spoke with a woman today who runs a shelter, a food pantry for pets. She serves like 3,600 families for people struggling to get food and things like that. So really, our mental health liaison is kind of a service pointer, for lack of a better term. She's a one-man army, so to speak. But, from what we started with to where we are now, I think in the future the sheriff would agree that we could foresee this being 2 or 3 other people. And the funding model is good because it's partially funded by a grant, but a majority of the income comes through billing insurances. So this person, because of their licensure, is able to bill Maine Care, private insurance, and other grants through the state of Maine to fund it. So it was kind of a no-brainer for us.
So this is how we're laid out. Anything in gray has their own police department. On the towns in blue is what we call District 1. That's Standish, Sebago, Baldwin. And we also have Raymond, Casco, Naples, Harrison, which is in the red. That's District 2. District 3 is the green, Gray, North Yarmouth, Pownell, New Gloucester. And then District 4 is what we call the islands, and that's Harpswell, Chebeague Island, and Long Island. We also, in the summertime, have responsibilities out on Fry Island as well for the 6 months out of the year. And then anything in gray, we categorize if we do something there, if we provide assistance, et cetera, then we code that to District 5, which is a place where it has its own police department. I would say the mental health liaison, going back to that question, is spending a lot of their time in the red and blue area, maybe a little into the green. I think when I asked her a couple weeks ago, she hadn't made it down to the Harpswell area. So, I mean, it's geography that is probably gonna be our biggest hurdle. And that's why I think eventually we may need to, but right now we're trying to, you don't know what you don't know, so we're trying to figure out what that looks like. Yes?
You have, fire departments have mutual aid. Police departments have things similar like that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we work very closely with Gorham, work very closely with Bridgeton. In fact, we cover a lot of calls up there just because they're a real small department. And anything more than 2 calls, we're usually sending somebody there. Wyndham, we have a very close relationship. In fact, April we'll be breaking ground on a joint substation with the Wyndham Police Department, Wyndham Fire Department. We'll have 3,000 square feet of space there as well. In gray, we work with Cumberland pretty regularly, Yarmouth as well, Freeport occasionally, Brunswick quite a bit with the islands and stuff like that. So, the other places, it's usually a K-9 request or an ESU call out, or we have a dive team that we might be called for that. But we all try to work together, and we're not there to take over for them. We're there to enhance their abilities to do their job. All right, so this is the Part 1 crimes. Probably going to ask where's 2025. We'll get those probably once the state correlates them probably in June of 2026. So, but you can see that, deaths are kind of all over the place there. And this includes, as far as I know, overdoses and stuff like that too? Yeah. So these are the overdoses, suicides. One thing that, going back what the chief deputy said when he started, 40 years ago when I started, suicide threats were weighed in weeks. And actual suicides were weighed in months. Now, it's not uncommon to have 3 or 4 suicide attempts in a night. Or, there's been a couple of times where we've had 2 suicides in a shift, and you wonder if they're correlated. So unfortunately, those things, whether it's overdoses or suicides, are just going up, and it's creating a lot of our attention. Robberies, thankfully, are all over the place, don't usually occur very often. Burglaries are up and down, assaults. And again, those are all assaults that are simple, not domestic violence. So those can be a wild card. Sex offenses, unfortunately, they're up quite a bit. And again, you can almost do nothing to prevent those other than education and try to get people to come forward. Missing persons, again, sometimes that's tied to kids, and sometimes that's tied to Alzheimer's patients, and then the rest are people that are depressed and they go out in the woods, and it ramps up a wood search or whatever. And then thefts, again, we saw a little bit of a dip. These are usually the most serious crimes. There's others like homicides, and thankfully we don't have a lot of those in Cumberland County. And arsons that are not listed in this Part 1 crime. But just kind of gives you an idea of what we're doing for serious crimes every year. So we're gonna go into the budget part. I don't know if you want to do, there's 3 different budgets. There's law enforcement, civil, and corrections. So I don't know how you want to handle that, but.
Briefly on the first 2, and I think the third one is where we're really concerned.
All right. So the law enforcement part, these are the increases that we're seeing in 2026, 2027 budget. The phone costs, well, vehicle fit-ups increased, everything's going up, labor, et cetera. So this is just to set the cruiser up when it gets drop shipped from the dealership. And it's going up by $5,800 per vehicle. Phone costs, I think you talked about cell phones earlier. The law enforcement contract added in cell phones for every deputy last year. So part of it was funded in this budget, and the rest of it comes in the budget coming up. So that's a little bit of a jump, only because it was a 6-month budget, and it's required by the contract. The National Forensics Academy attendee, that's a training down in Knoxville, Tennessee. That's usually our evidence people. We have 2 that are trained. Captain Fredericks wants to get another one trained if we can get them in. And these are the individuals that go out to the robbery scenes, the burglary scenes, the homicide scenes, the fatal accident scenes, and they collect the evidence. They photograph it. They put things back into where they are pictorially. So when it goes to the courtroom and they're doing a trial, it's almost as if you were there looking at how these things are laid out. I think you saw a little bit of it in the 5-year-old child that got hit by the school bus. Some of the efforts that Captain Fredericks and the state police and NTSB put together were aerial drone pictures and just actually putting the things that have to be in a crime scene back where they are so that you can kind of put it together when you're looking at it, especially if you're visual. And then lastly, some leadership development training. One of the things that we struggle with is when we promote people, whether it's a sergeant or a sergeant to a lieutenant, or a lieutenant to a captain. We don't do a lot of leadership training. It's trial by fire. You know, we somehow forget that, you know, now you're moving into something else where you have other responsibilities. And sometimes we find, you know, a deputy who's promoted to a sergeant can't let go of the things he was doing as a deputy, or a corrections officer for that matter, and do the things that we require a sergeant to do, and so on up. You know, I've seen in my career where somebody gets promoted from a deputy to a sergeant with a canine. And then they want to take the canine, and, you know, the canine's still serviceable, so you let that happen. Then they get promoted to lieutenant. Well, you know, now you're kind of stepping outside to give that to somebody else type thing. So this leadership training will help them understand that, look, more responsibility, more pay, so more expectations out of you. And so that's just a new line that we're putting in for that. Those are really the high points of the law enforcement and administrative budget.
You have body cams.
We do.
Is there any reason why we can't make the cell phone do that? Is there the technology
You know what, the cell phone is, got a good camera, but you have to make sure it's pointed the right way, you know, the holder. I mean, the body cams are very small, you know, they're built for being on the body. So they're a great product. I think down the road, maybe a phone company that really wanted to put some effort into it might come up with something like that. But right now, we kind of buy the best on the block, because when you need it, you want good quality and you want it to be there. And the other thing is unlike the phones where you gotta push it, these body cameras, you just push a button and it activates. Or it's also hooked to, when we pull our firearm or taser, it activates. And phone companies would have to get somewhat of that licensing to do that, so. Yes.
About wages and salaries for
Yes.
admin. There seemed to be a large increase, but not an increase in the number of full-time employees or total employees.
Which budget is that?
I'm looking at the administration budget, just the beginning lines, the wages and salaries. I see they were divided for full-time and part-time in the 25 to 26 adopted budget, but they're all full-time in the current budget.
So that was, again, we had a position added that started half year. So, and then the full year, you add back the other half, so that made it jump about $42,000.
Got it.
We did add a little bit of overtime because some of the non-union hourly people have to work, and there was a time when we didn't have that, but the way things are going now, every once in a while, you just need somebody to work overtime, you have to pay them, so.
I just have a question, going back to mental health issues and challenges there. Are officers today trained anything specially to deal with mental health cases, or?
Yeah, 8 hours?
There's a basic level in the academy, and then there's an advanced CIT training, which departments are required to have a minimum number of their staff, a percentage of the staff.
20%.
20%, thank you, have to be, to meet that criteria. It's a training that, there have been some struggles in the sense that there's very few organizations that provide that training, so making it available for a lot of different people, but it is a requirement from the state to have it, and we do have people with that advanced training. We also are crisis negotiators, which are part of our emergency services unit team, which is essentially our SWAT team. Those folks are very well trained in de-escalation, crisis response, mental health, and things like that. And that's a collaborative team with not just Cumberland County, Westbrook PD, Gorham PD,
Falmouth.
Cumberland PD,
Wyndham.
Falmouth PD, Wyndham PD. So that's kind of a regional type team. So.
If we're about to go into sheriffs, then, I'm sorry, to the jail. If we get to talk about the law enforcement budget for a moment?
Sure.
Okay, so we just got the enterprise activities list. We hadn't had that before. So I'm looking at the enterprise section on the first part of the law enforcement budget. And the budget for 26.7 is just under 3.3 million. And the number for revenues and expenses, which is the same as just under 3.9 million. I just want to understand how those two numbers relate to each other.
Is that the contract by chance?
Yeah, these are the contracts in the enterprise.
So one thing I left out, I went back to the, we have, so we have 8 deputies contracted in Standish. They are the Standish Police Department operating under the Sheriff's Office. They don't have to buy they don't have to pay for a chief, that comes through us. Their CID comes through us. So that's 8 deputies on the road 24/7 with overlaps. We have 2, soon to be 3, deputies, contract deputies in the town of Gray. And again, that's enough to cover most of the week, 24/7, but not all of the week. So these are, we have 2 in Harrison as well. We have summer contracts in Naples, Fry Island, Chebeague Island, Long Island. Down in Harpswell, we've had a long-standing contract with them for 3 deputies down there for law enforcement, and then 2 Marine Patrol deputies as well. So what is a contract? The town, I use the old, and it's kind of wearing out because HBO is not HBO much anymore, but if you buy, the general revenue policing is like basic cable. You know, you pay for it, you get it, it's nothing special. You know, you might get a deputy covering 4 or 5 towns, maybe 6 or 7. Maybe there's 2 covering 6 or 7 towns. And then if you want the special, the HBO package, that is the Standish contract, the Gray contracts, the Harrison. You pay more to have somebody specifically in that town, but you don't lose the basic cable that you had. I mean, the deputies are still going around the lake and through the towns and stuff like that. So I'm guessing that that's most of what you're talking about there. We also have a person, or had a person assigned to Maine Drug, and he went to the DEA, so that's not filled right now.
I understand that these are the contracts, this is
Sure.
what they cost, and so this is what the towns pay for them, so it evens out. I'm trying to understand the section of the budget that talks about revenues and enterprise, but has a different number than the one that's on here.
That, what was in, what you're looking at has been updated.
This is the updated number?
Correct.
Okay, and because it evens out, it's not gonna affect the budget anyway?
Correct. That was one of the delays that we had, because as we get closer into when the sheriff's office starts sending out contracts to towns, which typically happens in February, March, April, we have a better sense of what the contract prices are gonna be to be able to put that sheet together.
Unlike dispatch, it's not being subsidized by other communities that don't have contracts.
Okay, I guess I'll just touch on the civil part of it. We have a department that's civil. They deliver civil processes throughout Cumberland County. Captain Smith oversees that. That budget typically pays for itself. About 3 years ago, the legislature went up on the price for service, and we started kind of making it a wash. Prior to that, it had been 1984 since the pricing for making the services. So everything going up, people costs going up, and we were always in the red chasing our butts. But, you know, that pretty much is a small department that brings in the revenue that pays for that group to exist. Any questions on that? All right. So the jail.
Sheriff, if I could just, do you have any other slides?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
I tell people, and I still think it's somewhat true, even though our numbers are scaled back since COVID. We run the largest mental health facility in the state of Maine. And it's also the largest substance use facility in the state of Maine. About 75 to 80% of the people there are co-occurring. Substance use disorder, mental illness, and co-occurring is the combination of the two. Lately, we've had unprecedented medical issues with people coming in. We are a hospital masquerading as a jail. The challenges that these folks in the jail run into, we have a very sick population coming in. We've had a number of hospital details that we've had to do over the last couple of years that I've never seen before. And that becomes costly. Sometimes we have 2 or 3 people in the hospital, which requires, depending on their security level, 1 or 2 people per person spread out through the hospital. So the staff that work there, the command staff that are here, that keep the place running, they do yeoman's work. The mental illness is pervasive. 2 weeks ago, and we'll have a staff tomorrow, and I'm sure it'll be the same, we have 21 people waiting to get into Riverview. Those are people that, quite frankly, should be in a hospital, not in a jail. Occasionally, I'll write a letter to DHHS, basically for those individuals that really should be in the hospital, because you wouldn't treat your animal like that. I'll write a letter to see if we can get them bumped up. And unfortunately, that happens more often than not. There's not a lot of forensic mental health beds. Forensic beds are for people that are, mental health beds are people that are incarcerated. So we would never send anybody to Westbrook. They're either gonna go to Dorothea Dix or Riverview. And there's less than 100 beds between the 2 facilities. So the staff is constantly working with medical staff and mental health providers in the jail to try to get these folks to somewhere where they need. Quite frankly, people think that somebody gets arrested, oh my God, that they're gonna get what they need. Nope, I'm telling you right now. We don't have them long enough. We're gonna stabilize them, whether they're on substance use, or we're gonna stabilize them if they're mentally ill or they have the co-occurring. But the reality is, we're a jail, and we're not a hospital. Although, like I said, everybody's coming, we don't know the shape they're gonna be in, and we have to try to mitigate that and then farm people out and get them the medical or mental health treatment they need. So that's the day-to-day operation of the county jail. One of the things that was brought up is food costs. We all know when we go to the supermarket now, we're paying a lot more than we did last year, 2 years ago, 4 years ago. On any given day, we're cranking out between 1,300 and 1,400 meals a day. A snapshot of one day this fall shows the special diets that the 5-person food services group, helped by trustee inmates, they were required to make 158 different special diets. So typically, 20, 30 years ago, you didn't have this like it was. Maybe you had 5 or 10, but let's say lunch was a hamburger and French fries and stuff. Everybody got hamburger and French fries. But this particular day, you see what we had to do in addition to whatever they were preparing for the other inmates. The kitchen staff work hard to try to drill down on the cost of the breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But if you notice the specialty diet meals, you can add on $5 or more to the regular inmate cost, because you can't just go to Sysco and buy halal meals, let's say, right? You gotta go to a store that has halal meals, and you're gonna pay a premium. We have some stopgaps. We have a full-time reverend who looks at the requests for certain diets that go with religion. And, you know, what he looks at is, you know, I want this religious meal. Then he looks at whether or not, because the inmates can buy commissary, he looks at what they're buying, you know, and if somebody says, well, I can't have pork, but they're getting pork rinds, then we kind of crack down on them. Because we're dealing with people that, they know how to play the system. We also have the medical telling us what, you know, is needed. You know, everybody who's coming through is evaluated by a nurse, an RN. So they're into whether or not the person needs a certain diet and make sure that the kitchen knows about it. So it is a little bit of a struggle for the people to keep everyone happy. And then, of course, you have the people that come in and they may have been at the state prison and they had steak and they asked for steak and it's like, well, this is jail. There's a hotel down the street if you want to choose that. So, you know, we're dealing with manipulators and we try to work with them to make sure that we're not gonna get sued and that we meet the requirement we're have to do, both legally and constitutionally. Do you have any questions on the meals?
Is Cisco the only game in town?
Well, we use Cisco occasionally. We use a couple other local places occasionally. We have a contract with
Trinity Food Service.
Trinity Food Services that claim that they're giving us the best deal in town, and sometimes, and most of the time they do. But the staff try to figure out, okay, if I can save a few cents here and buy local, why wouldn't I do that? You know, so most of it's Trinity, but, you know, we've empowered the staff to go out and try to find better deals on the meals.
Hanford and Shaw is not an option?
No.
They don't,
I mean, I'm not gonna say that if something was absolutely necessary, there's a Shaw's 2 miles away, you know, they needed something, they'd run out and get it. But on a steady diet, no pun intended. They're buying through Trinity, and then trying to see who's offering cheaper foods for the same quality. And again, the quality meets the accreditation part. I mean, we have to have a health inspector come in, you know, a couple of times a year, and make sure that we're serving the food correctly and at the same right temperature, and, I mean, it just drills down to a bunch of things.
I think even to the caloric intake of each meal too, if I'm not mistaken. Like that's, all of that is accounted for.
You also notice on the wages and salary, we moved, the major wanted to move 4 corrections officers into programming, and we might fluctuate a little on that, depending on our staffing levels. When this was created, our staffing levels were pretty good. We don't know what our staffing level is going to be in the future, so our hope is to transition these folks, but, you know, we're going to kind of play that situationally as things go. One thing we had to pick up, as you can imagine, I heard the figure the other day, I think it was 1,300 applicants, 130 people hired, and that's agency-wide, but most of them are corrections. And what we've been doing is utilizing ARPA funds to have an outside vendor do the background checks. And as you well know, ARPA has come to a screeching halt. So we've had to put that into our budget because I have to sign a document with the academy that says we've done an accurate and full criminal background investigation. And part of that is having we can't do it in-house. There's just too much going through. So this is a reputable company, retired sheriff from Aroostook County that's picked up the business, and they're doing very well for us.
And that's not a full background either. That's a portion of the labor, checking references, employment records, and things like that. They don't have access to the criminal justice databases that we do. So they handle the lion's share of that portion of it, interviewing neighbors, things like that, and then we take the background back over and complete the portions like the polygraph and, criminal justice search, fingerprinting, things like that we have to do as well.
So, sometimes things don't make a lot of sense. Why isn't the academy doing all of that? I mean, everybody goes to the academy. Why is not that part of their?
They're a unbelievably short-staffed group. And I say short-staffed, not because people are left. It's just, everybody expects the academy to do everything, Provide the training, make sure that posts, they look at whether or not officers lose their certification or not, their post-certification. So they have to look at any officer that's committed a crime or believed to have been committing a crime. They don't have the capacity to do it, the bottom line. They mandate it, but they don't have the capacity to do it.
We're spending the money, and the local police department's spending the money, and the state police is spending the money. So there's these little pockets of expense, and it would seem to me that the academy is producing a widget that's equal. An academy grad is an academy grad is an academy grad, right? And he's hireable. Or you've set him up there, or Cumberland set him up, Yarmouth set him up there. It would seem to me that we spend our money better or wiser, we would allocate the funds to the academy to do that piece of.
Well, it just so happens that the former chair of the Maine Criminal Justice Board of Trustees is sitting next to me, so he might be able to tell you something that I can't.
Well, there's a state mandate that I'll use law enforcement for an example. Every law enforcement officer is required to have the same elements of their background checked. So it's straight across the board, whether you're a Kittery police officer, a Fort Kent police officer, a state trooper, a sheriff's deputy, everyone has the same standard that they have to meet to qualify as, they have to have a polygraph exam, they have to have those are what agencies use as a screening tool to hire somebody. When they make the decision to hire somebody, then they enroll them in the academy. If there's any conduct in the person's past under statute that may prevent them, maybe they were in college and they shared an Adderall pill during finals. Well, that could be a technical violation of furnishing someone a scheduled drug, a prescription drug. In that case, they would have to get a waiver from the Board of Trustees to attend. But long story short, this is no surprise, it comes down to money. The Maine Criminal Justice Academy has a budget of just around $2 million. The legislature constantly is saying, well, the academy should handle it. The academy gets no more money than what they've had. When I went through the police academy in 1995, there were 22 employees. When I left as the chairman of the Board of Trustees a year and a half ago, there were 12. So, like every other state department, it's starved, and they do the best they can, and they rob Peter to pay Paul, and a lot of those expenses are put on the agencies. That's just the reality of it, I guess.
And we're talking about the $25,000 money to Edgewater background contest?
Yes.
That sounds reasonable. 25,000 to hiring an employee.
Yeah, so if you looked at that statewide, we could fund that position.
Yes, but not tonight.
So
I'll let them know.
You have no pull now.
No.
The next page, we also moved in pre-employment medical screenings, which is something that the corrections officers go through too. We want to make sure that we weeded out any issues that would prevent them from doing their job. Want to make sure that there's no pre-existing injuries, that they might go on the job and then get injured and then tag along to their work. We also screen for use of medications and drugs, not medications, drugs, just to make sure that we're not hiring people that are using illicit drugs. So again, $35,000, a lot of people, I'm sure that we blow right through that, but it's money well spent, in my opinion, to make sure that we know what we're getting for an employee when they walk through the door. We talked about food. There's another big expense here called medical. Oops. So this is our staffing for our medical contract. Now, we're in the process of switching providers next week. But we have a health services administrator that oversees everything. And she works she works a lot more than 40 hours a week lately. That health services administrator has an administrative assistant. The director of nursing right now just got hired, but the health services administrator was actually doing 2 jobs, and I would say probably 3 at some point. Our medical director is a doctor, and right now we're having a hard time finding a doctor. We had a guy lined up, and he came for 1 day, and he left. To me, I think jail medicine is, you either love it or you don't. You know, I think it's just like working in long-term care. Some people like that, and other people want to be in the emergency room running from one side of the hospital to the other. So we're still looking for that individual. We're still looking for a psychologist. Most of these folks actually retired, and they were long-standing employees of our provider, but, you know, so again, trying to find a psychologist that wants to do 1 hour a week. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, but we have some mental health people down below that kind of vet people so that the psychologist can do his or her job specifically for that 1 hour every week. Dentist and dental assistant is 7.6 hours a week. And sometimes let's face it, a lot of the drugs that these folks are using tear down the body, tear down their teeth. And when they come to the jail, we have to make them better than when they came in. Now, we don't get into sex changes and stuff like that. We don't have to do that. But we have to maintain their medical or take care of any acute medical issues going forward. There's no questions asked that we got to do that. So the dentist stays very busy because most of these folks don't have the luxury. And they're not going to their doctor every year or every 6 months. They're not going to the dentist once every 6 months. So there's a lot of work there, and they try to do the best they can. The physician's assistant, the person that just retired was with us for 18 years. She was the glue that kept everything together. I think she was the longest employee. She spanned a couple of providers and really did a good job. And that person stays really busy because that's the one that's vetting people and again, pushing off when the doctor comes in, those things that need to be looked at by a doctor. Psychiatric nurse practitioner, she's in 40 hours a week. I say she usually is, but could be a he. And again, they're working to try to take care of a lot of the issues so that the psychologist doesn't have to be stressed out on it. We have 2.2 FTEs of social workers. We have 2.8 FTEs of registered nurses. Right now, we're using LPNs and CRMAs interchangeably. The new provider may have a different philosophy, but that's what we have currently. We have an MAT nurse that is fairly new to the program. I mean, we offer MAT in the program or in the jail. When we started out, we were around 130 inmates, and I think last week or the week before, we were told about 40 inmates. Why that number dropped, I have no idea. Medication-assisted treatment. So it was something that was is mandated by the state. And again, what we're trying to do is those who come in obviously stay on the medication. Those who come in and have never had an opportunity to get on the medication, we call it induction, we put them on with the idea that we do a warm handoff at the end when they leave so that they can get the services when they leave. The unfortunate thing is we don't have the staff to track them, so we don't know what goes on when they leave. But the hope is they're set up with all the things to be successful when we open the door and say, good luck.
Just out of curiosity, you say it's the state, mandates this, but you're the largest jail in the state. What expertise does the state have telling you anything? And why aren't you getting your recommendations from a national agency or something like that?
Well, I mean, the state has a lot of resources, but quite frankly, 9 years ago, the DOC, Maine Department of Corrections, was not offering MAT at all because of the governor was in power at that time, didn't believe in MAT. So we didn't put people on MAT because our thought is people coming into the jail, eventually going to go to the prison, and why start them on MAT and then have them shut down as soon as they go into the prison? So it was the Mills administration that opened up that, you know what, we should be given MAT, and then it became a standard that you have to give MAT. Now, of course, they didn't give you any money with that, right? So we had to figure out how we do it, which is a constant challenge for the people in the jail. If you got to do this, but we're not giving any money, so figure it out.
Do you coordinate efforts or coordinate training or coordinate policy across the country, regionally, or, I mean, how do you?
Well, accreditation requires us to do the same thing, meet the same standard as a jail who's accredited through ACA in California, and in Florida, and in Washington State. So that's the beauty behind national accreditation is you're meeting standards that other jails, you know, best practices.
When I build a house, I meet standards.
Yep.
You do the same thing.
Yeah. DOC has now become ACA accredited, so we have a partner there, and then Somerset County Jail has too. As far as the training, I mean, the state offers up some training, but keep in mind, the MAT is really done through our medical provider. You know, we are not involved in that because it's a medical decision.
So earlier when we were talking about the work that the sheriffs are doing in the community, you mentioned that the social worker is able to bill for work. My understanding is that Medicaid, and I assume MaineCare as well, and a lot of your customers are probably on Medicaid or MaineCare, they shut off reimbursements when somebody's been detained.
They do.
What percentage of your population is that on average?
It's probably most of them, you know, and you probably have some that don't even have insurance, right? Now.
For those who might have insurance.
Yep.
Are your providers in-network or able to bill in any way?
So they only bill once somebody's admitted to the hospital. Like if somebody goes to the hospital, is admitted, then we can file for reimbursement through MaineCare.
But not for the care being done at the facility?
No, that's on the taxpayer's back. And we often are faced with, I'll use it for instance, we had an individual that was arrested on a Monday. On Friday, he was having open heart surgery. He didn't get bailed out, and the bail was $1,000. So I took money out of our medical account and put his bail up so he could get out of jail. Because once he's out of jail, that operation's on him, not on our taxpayers. So on a rare occasion, we will make bail for somebody if they're going in for a medical, because I'd rather, you know, would you spend $1,000 to save 40? Absolutely, right? And we sometimes have to make those decisions based on what's going on. Sometimes we're able to get the person released, you know, on PR, so it doesn't cost any money. Sometimes we can put them on a bracelet through Maine pretrial, so that they're in our custody, but we don't have to sit on them. But the big thing is when they're in our custody, we're all paying for it.
Now, you mentioned before having to send somebody to a hospital and having officers circulating in the hospital depending on where they were. And you need to have commissioned officers going.
Yes.
Which you then have to pay outside officers to have enough to do that. Is there a line in the training in your budget to add more commissioned officers?
I think it comes out of the overtime. I mean, the Scarborough Police Department's been a godsend for us in the post-COVID world. We pay dearly, but they take care of it. And when we have 2 or 3 hospital details going on, it's hard for the corrections staff that are certified, commissioned to go there. So Scarborough takes care of that, and it's worked out really well. But we pay dearly for that. And it's, in my opinion, it's worth the price because there's no alternative.
Well, wouldn't the alternative be to put more officers through training to be commissioned?
Well, yeah, but
So you have more-
trying to hire corrections officers is a bit of a challenge, just like trying to hire police officers, you know. We try to get better, but, you know, the bottom line is nobody's knocking down our door to be a corrections officer or a law enforcement officer.
You lost me. You have a certain number of corrections officers already working for you.
Yes,
Can any of those people be?
no,
No.
no. They have to have specialized training,
Okay.
and we have to keep the staffing in the jail as well. So we don't have the extra, I mean, we get a few extra, but we don't have the extra that we can send them to do a couple of hospital details at the same time. So we have competing responsibilities. We got to keep the jail staffed, and then we now have to staff this one person or two people at a hospital, and depending on their risk assessment, we may have to have one person or two people sitting on them. So everybody sitting in this room, for the most part, has probably done a hospital detail just to keep things moving along and staffing in the jail at a safe level.
Is there a coordination effort at the hospital to create a unit for you, or are they spread all over the place?
They're usually spread all over the place. If you were to talk to the major, sitting in the back, who came from Massachusetts, Mass DOC has a floor of a local hospital down in Mass. But they're dealing in numbers, right? I mean, you know, today, we don't have any hospital details. So having an area of the hospital would be useless. When we have two or three, one would say, you know, a section of one floor might be helpful. But again, it
Depends on the medical issue. too.
yeah.
If it's a cardiac patient, they're gonna be in a cardiac unit. If they're, you know, oncology, they're gonna be in another unit.
So I'll clarify a little bit on the commission piece of that. There are officers in there that do have desire to become commissioned, and there is money in the training budget that we could commission some of them. But the academy also has some standards, one being the physical agility test. The physical agility qualifications for the corrections side is not the same as is required on the, whether it be full-time or part-time law enforcement academy. So in order to even get into that class, they have to pass that. So that's a hurdle that we're having a hard time with our current staff, even the ones that want commissions, to get to. We do have the ability to train some of them, but we don't have people that are qualified to be able to get into the class to be trained. So that's a big issue with what we're dealing right now with some of these, being able to get more commissioned officers is that's the biggest hurdle that we have.
So that's it for my presentation. I'll take any other comments or questions, or?
So I went down through the budget here at home the other night there, and I see a number of adopted budget items, and then I see the actual expense, and then the budget request. So sometimes it's a small amount of money, the actual cost. Sometimes it's a significant amount of money, so, you know. We'll all watch it.
Previous year. That's the actual from the previous year.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. So, at the end of the year, you only have a pot of money to work with. So you're shuffling numbers all the time.
Yes, we're watching the bottom line. At the end, we're hoping that it comes in on the black at the bottom of the, so yes, we shuffle things around because we deal in crisis. You know, it's, if God forbid we have a tragedy, thankfully we haven't, you know, and everything's working good, we could overexpend the overtime. So now we got to try to figure out where do we make our cuts for the budget we're in. I use it, for instance, paper products. We have a huge dishwasher. And it's probably 10 or 12 years old. It has a lot of dishes going through it. Every once in a while, it goes down. What do we have to do? We can't use dishes, so we use paper products. the paper products has a finite line, but, you know, if it keeps going down or it's down for a period of time because you can't buy parts, then we can blow through the paper products, for instance, and then we gotta figure out, okay, where else can we not get something so that we can make up for the overage? So, you know, we kind of operate in crisis mode on that, because you make your budget based on what you hope the year will look like, but there's always things that are gonna come up that are gonna challenge the staff.
You know, here's one, professional services, adopted budget was 5,000, and the actual expense was 7,000.
Yep.
And then the budget request is 30,000.
Yep. And that, there again, it's kind of trying to figure that out. I mean, if we have a lot of FOIA requests that relate to the jail, then we're reaching out to an attorney going, okay, do we, you know, can you look at that? And it doesn't take long for an attorney to blow through $5,000 or more. It might be an issue where we're looking at, you know, some legal litigation that is not a lawsuit, but, you know, is in-house and stuff, and we're trying to head things off with an attorney. So that professional services especially gets hit by that. The other thing is we have a polygraphist in-house, so we try to do as much with her as possible, but on occasion, we want to get people on the floor, so we'll go out and hire a polygraphist, and that costs us $350, $400, $450, and that's coming out of professional services as well. So that's one that, you know, seems like when we put it high, we don't use it, we ratchet it down to what we thought we could get away with, and then it comes in high, and you're over. So we're always fine tuning our budgets.
And if I could jump in, that line saw the jump because of the Edgewater background check consultant that we are using.
I wasn't picking on him for that one, I was just using that as an example.
Understood.
I mean, I could say equipment rental here was 12,000 and you spent 16, and then you budget for 12,600. And what my point was, my question was, I've been on enough budget committees, and I served on the school board for 15 years, and I know how the school plays with cost centers through the course of the year to make it all come out at the end of the year.
And I'm sure the county manager, I'm very sure that he's mentioned the funding formula for the jail, which is completely different than anything else. And you're always expecting funding from the state, and it almost never, you never get what you expected or what was owed to you for one reason or another. So again, this budget is very complex because it's just got so many moving parts. You know, you got a lot of staff, you got a lot of things in like medical that you don't expect. And I remember a time where the medical was cost plus, and you know, we put $3 million in, and there would be $250,000 left over that you could roll in. So, you know, the $3 million next year was less than $3 million. But now with the amount of medications, the psychotropic medications that people are on and stuff, you know, we're trying to do the best we can and control the cost, but not at the risk of somebody's life or mental health.
So I have to ask the question about the elephant in the room.
Wait, can I ask one question before we go completely in that direction?
Yes.
Okay.
Or two.
We'll keep it to one. Last year, there was a general obligation bond, I think was accepted for for a roof for the jail, $2.5 million. I understand that didn't happen yet.
No.
It is out to bid currently.
Okay. Is there a design yet, or?
Yes.
Does the design allow for solar panels?
Well, funny that you ask, because when they did a walkthrough with 13 or 14 contractors about 2 weeks ago, the current setup on the roof is a stone roof. And one of the questions was, can it be converted to a rubber membrane?
It's a ballasted roof?
It's a ballasted roof, yeah. And so that question came about. We get calls all the time from solar vendors saying, hey, you got a nice roof there, and we've been holding them off because for 5 years now, we've been trying to get this jail roof funded and replaced. It seems like every time we budget something for it, we got a more pressing need that we have to shift money away from it. This year, we've made the commitment that we're doing it, and keeping it steady. So I foresee probably a solar conversation happening on the backside. We do already offset the jail electricity with solar credits. We have 4 megawatts of solar coming out of Waterboro, Maine, solar farm down there. So we have a number of joint meters on that 4 megawatts, anywhere from the Cross Insurance Arena to the jail to the courthouse. And so that is something that we have our eye on solar. We even have solar on this roof.
Want to make sure it would be built in a way that could accept solar, unlike our school that was renovated and unable to put on solar panels.
Understood.
See, everyone thinks that this jail is a new jail. It's 33 years old. It has outlasted the last 2 jails that were built. The one on Federal Street lasted for about 30 years before they built this one. And prior to the Federal Street, the Monroe Street Jail, which was down in the back Bay area, was there for about 30 years too. So we're 3 years beyond the last 2 jails. And, you know, frankly, I don't think we need to build another one anytime soon. But we do have to keep up on it. And oftentimes, whether I hear it in the legislature or, you know, in the state, well, you get a new jail. No, it's not new, you know. Comparatively speaking, it is, but it's not new, so. Okay, the elephant.
The elephant.
So if we are to lose all federal funding, is there a staffing plan? Is there a contingency plan? Or?
And have we lost all federal funding? Do we still have the marshals part of the contract?
We do today. We do today. So I met with the staff today because it's not the funding that I'm worried about, but, you know, staffing, right? So we're working on a plan to kind of drill down and come up with some contingency plans should our staffing dissipate. I'll leave it at that. So yeah, there's something in place we're working on. So, and I challenged the staff to a bunch of different things, including thinking outside the box.
We paid a flat fee, or we paid by per inmate?
Per inmate, and then the feds also pick up any extraordinary medical costs. We bill them for that as well.
Is there a way for us to, other than historical data, you know, project forward, you know, what that income might be?
There's a lot of political headwind on what the future is for the feds. You know, we lost the ICE last week, which was 2/3 of what we were holding. We have the capacity if the marshals want to go up, but right now we have them, and there's no plan to move them. I wish I had more. You know, I looked for that crystal ball.
Better than what I thought we might get.
I need a little more clarification on kind of where we have been, because I'm looking at the minutes from our first meeting, and my understanding was that this is a facility for medium and higher level security inmates, and that the typical immigration pickups weren't coming to our facility. I understand there was a surge in Maine, and I thought perhaps that was the reason that there were 50 inmates that were ICE inmates. But you're suggesting that it's been like that all along, that we've had that kind of number coming from ICE?
No, we've been holding them for 33 years. It's been like a roller coaster. I mean, back in 06, 07, we had, and I'm pooling all of the feds together, we had about 125 on a daily basis. In fact, I was asked by a commissioner if I could reach out to the feds to get them to arrest more people so we could hold more people, because it was a revenue generator. Now, it was just figured into the budgeting, right? I mean, 92, the marshals give the county $1 million with the idea for 20 years, they would always have a certain number of beds. I think it was 10, but, you know, I don't know. Obviously, that requirement for the certain number of beds is out, but it's been baked into the funding of the Cumberland County Jail. And some jails are upset that we get that, but it's not that we're anything special or I'm anything special. It's that we have the federal court up on the hill 4 miles away, and we're convenient, right? Now, ICE inmates, there's some years we hadn't had any, you know, depending on what administration's priorities with. There were some times when we would have 1 or 2, you know. They were caught on the border and stopped in Portland, and they put them in Portland, and then they moved them closer to immigration court, which is not in Portland, it's in Boston and Hartford. So we've been all over the place, but the marshals have been a pretty big mainstay the whole time. And it's been down as low as 35, you know, so 125, 35. I remember my predecessor, Sheriff Dion, saying it's like Wall Street. What you have today might tank tomorrow. So the message was to the commissioners, don't live on it because it could go away at any time. So that's kind of the 411 history as I know it for the last 30 years, 33 years. So I don't know if that answered your question.
It doesn't, because I'm trying to understand how we got from, are you saying that that the ICE detentions are part of the U.S. Marshals detention
Yeah.
numbers?
Yeah.
So when it was 35 to 125, that included ICE?
Yeah. But right now, as we sit there, today, we have 37 U.S. Marshal inmates. ICE has pulled their 50 last Thursday.
Is 50 typical?
For ICE?
Yes.
They were up as high as 75, and they were, as the chief probably was going to say, under the last part of the Biden administration, we were at 54. So we weren't that high. It was, you know, we went up 20. But when they pulled their people last Thursday, we were down at 50. So that was less.
These
So
are people who needed at least medium security.
medium and high risk security. 2/3 of them were from out of state, and the other third were the worst of the worst inmate.
Marshals, when they bring you somebody, it's somebody who is pretrial in the federal court system,
Yes.
and most of your other inmates are pretrial in the main system.
Most of them, about 2/3 usually. I was told today that the sentenced people in our jail, there's not a lot.
So when the marshal sends somebody to you, that is somebody who is in a court process.
Yes.
But when ICE sends somebody to you, they are only in an immigration court outside the federal court system that you have in Portland.
As far as I know.
They could be potentially post-sentence federally, but they'll just be in our custody for the time that it takes to orchestrate. From marshals, orchestrate them going to the Bureau of Prisons. So it might be a day.
And usually, when they're sentenced, they can get a better deal in Stratford, New Hampshire at $95 a day. So once they're sentenced, and we're not on the bus route here in Cumberland County, so they'll move them to Stratford closer to the bus route that operates, you know, a couple times a week, picking up federal detainees and taking them to federal penitentiaries.
A lot of times the sentence marshals, inmates are in a program in the area, maybe through probation or something of that nature, and then they won't make that program, so they get rearrested. They'll be with us for only a short period of time before they get brought back to wherever they were doing their sentence time. Historically, we've never had any sentenced federal inmates, either marshals or immigration. They're all waiting some sort of hearing or something somewhere. But we do get occasionally the ones like I just explained that are sentenced, were released from a federal prison somewhere else, were located in this area, whether it be probation or in some sort of a program. They violate that, they get rearrested, brought to us for a short period of time, and then transferred out of there.
It sounds like what happened with ICE is kind of a blessing in disguise. Because there were people in the community who strongly wanted us to drop ICE from the contract, and we were afraid we would lose the marshals if we did that, because marshals weren't going to allow us to do it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean.
With my understanding of things right now.
Yeah, there are some people that are happy because they pulled their, for whatever reason. Yeah, so it became a blessing in disguise for those who were really worried about trying to make that group happy. And fine.
Is there a way to, but we have a contract right now. Is there a way to ratify it? I mean, to get a clean copy that doesn't have the box for ICE checked off? Or are we putting that contract at risk by even asking?
I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, you know, the county manager and I, Jim, were talking the other day because they said they canceled the contract, and he texted me and said, did we miss something? Because, you know, it was a contract between us and the marshals. It's just that they checked the ICE box. So, I mean.
And the other thing I heard in the news is that the ICE part of it hasn't been paid for several months.
That's correct.
Is there any news on that and how that's affecting our budget?
Well, that, we have not received payment since September. September to December. The first reason behind that was the shutdown in October and November, delayed, created a backlog. And then the reason that we most recently received was that Secretary Noem has instituted a policy that any accounts payable item, she needs to sign off if it's over $100,000. Well, we're at 1.12 million between September and December. And then we have are currently tabulating what January 1st to January 22nd is for a bill. So we're probably pushing up over $1.2 million. We have not seen anything as of yet, and over the last 3 or 4 days, I have been in contact with Senator Collins' office and Senator King's office. And those two offices are working together, and I think timing is kind of right because ICE has a appropriations bill in front of Congress, and there might be some leverage that can be had. I will share that from staff's understanding, we're not the only jail or prison in America that is falling into this category, and that the people that we interface with in the Department of Homeland Security have caught an earful from many different jurisdictions about delay or holding of ICE funds.
So without ICE going forward, or have you changed your projections for your budget for next year about federal borders?
I can answer that. Yes, and there was this budget that was sent out to you was created last week in response to a workshop that we had with the county commissioners. Because as you know, we've talked 3 different budgets for the jail over the last couple of months. And we really needed to get some guidance, some further guidance from the county commissioners on where we're gonna stand with federal revenue. It was at last Tuesday that the commissioners provided guidance that to build a budget that had no federal revenue in it.
And not even just regular marshals' borders?
Not even regular marshals. This was all before things started going downhill on Thursday. And so, even though marshals is still there, they're still a federal agency, we really don't know. We're not even a week into losing ICE, let alone having a firm understanding of what is to come. And so we really haven't gone back to having another discussion with the commissioners. At this point, the budget that I passed out this evening and emailed you all, there is no federal revenue in that budget. We have put $300,000 of fund balance from the jail in the budget to try to get the tax rate down somewhat. That will require us to take about $600,000 out of the fund balance, because what we do is, if we're gonna do that, we wanna step down. We can't live at 300,000 every single year, so it would be we'll put 600,000 into a reserve account, or the commissioners will. 300,000 will be used in FY '27, 200,000 in FY '28, 100,000 in FY '29, and then by FY '30, hopefully we're off from using fund balance. And so that's how we would incrementally get off from fund balance. But that's the funding plan as of today. And like I've said, since the commissioners' workshop last Tuesday evening, a lot has happened in the world of the jail.
Any questions from those who are virtual? Any further questions?
No questions, but thank you guys for doing what you do, and I just have learned a lot about, like, I'll leave here remembering what you said about it being a hospital that you guys are doing, and I think that's what I'm learning a lot, being here from the sheriff and from dispatch, just how much mental health challenges are taking up a lot of time and resources. So is there anything we can do outside of the budget to help with that, like advocate at the state level for something? Like I feel like I want to help, but I just don't know how to help.
Forensic beds.
Do what?
Forensic beds. All the psych beds that have been taken away in the state do not help us at all with the inmate population that we deal with on a daily basis. There aren't enough beds. Like the sheriff said earlier, we have 21 people waiting for beds. And that's all that's available in the state. We're not the only county. There's 15 other jails trying to do this, 14 other jails trying to do the same thing. There's no beds for these people to be in.
You said forensic beds?
Forensic beds for people that are in custody that need mental health. Yeah.
For instance, Spring Harbor and Westbrook, we would never take anyone in custody because they're not forensic beds. So if we have somebody, what we try to do is facilitate their release and then find some sponsor to take them to Spring Harbor. I think the mental health system just keeps getting worse and worse every year because it's a huge problem and nobody knows how to attack it. One of the frustrating things in sitting on a committee was the fact that, and I agree with the beds, but you can build buildings, you just got to staff it.
Yeah.
And somehow Maine, and I feel this about law enforcement certification as well, but somehow Maine has created this thought that they're better than any other state as far as training and expectations and stuff. And, that's a good thing. But social workers, if you're a social worker like in New Jersey, and I've talked to a bunch of them that have come from other states, and the hoops and hurdles to get licensed in the state of Maine is unbelievable. So, why, and they don't get paid a lot, and then it's expensive to live in Maine, so you have all of these factors. So I often say, build a building, put more beds in it, but then I think, you gotta staff it. There's a living room in Portland, they call it the living room. It's a mental health facility that was a pilot project. And one of the mental health providers, I'm trying to think who it was, but they built this living room where police could actually drop people off that didn't have to go to the emergency room, because that's the other place that they end up is when you're a deputy out in the backwoods of Maine, Cumberland County, and you have something, you hope you either have something that you can take them to the emergency room, or they've done something that you can arrest them for. And then you take them, and the deputy can go home thinking, I don't have to worry about going back and something bad happening. And that's what they're up against. That's why this liaison is a good thing. This living room provides an intermediate step. It's small, and when they started about 3 years ago, they could only be open for 12 out of the 24 hours because they couldn't staff it. you know, now they're open 24 hours. I think it's helped us a little bit, but it's a supply and demand thing. We got a lot of demand and not a lot of supply. And so answering your question, advocating, but you got to look at it as if I fix 3 or 4 people, then I fix 3 or 4 people who affect 10 people apiece. And everybody wants I spent $1 million or $8 million or $40 million and I want to fix it tomorrow. And that isn't going to happen because we're so far into this problem that it's going to take us a while to get out. Long way of saying that we need help, but I'm not sure where to point you in the direction because it goes back to how do you eat an elephant, one bite at a time, right?
And there have been some changes too. I'm not sure where it's at in the process, but Maine Care was in the process, last I knew, of creating a program where people could reinstate and become a Maine Care beneficiary prior to release. Jim, you might know more about this than I do, but they would be eligible for their benefits within a certain time period before they're released for that soft handoff, so that they're enrolled with a provider, that they have that doctor that they can go to and things like that. But yeah, once you're incarcerated, those benefits stop immediately.
That's being held up in the federal government. There is a provision, but there's some things that they need to get taken care of, so.
Bob, I think Tim has a question.
It just seems like another example of, they need you, they want you, they dictate that you provide these services, but where does the funding come from? Like, it's nice to know under this administration that Governor Mills has wanted you to provide the MAT services. Under the previous administrations, apparently they didn't, but again, you're required to provide those services with no funding. And it seems like there should be some way of advocating to try to help get Maine Care funds available for the services that you're providing. I didn't realize that once they're incarcerated, that funding is stopped. It's hard to understand what makes that make any sense. That they're in your care now, but the funding stops. So maybe there's a way that we as towns can help advocate with our legislators to try to provide some assistance there. But you're being asked to do a lot with no money. So that was just my thought.
I would second that. And, you know, I offer up, anyone wants to take a tour of the jail and check out what we're doing. I mean, these folks are doing some great stuff with unusual circumstances. And you're welcome to come in and take a look, because there's a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts that just happen on a day-to-day basis, so.
Just one last thought. It's one thing that all these townspeople that are on this committee are used to the state sending down unfunded mandates. So we do have some expertise in this. Maybe we can help you a little bit.
Any help would be appreciated.
You guys do a lot with very little. And we're certainly appreciative of that. Thank you for your presentation tonight. Thank you for your stand in the public.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll take you up on that tour.
Yeah, anytime.
Have our
Jim?
next meeting there.
Should we get started?
Anything else that we need to cover tonight?
No, I don't believe so. We do have a additional meeting that's scheduled February 10th, I believe it is.
10th, February 10th, Tuesday.
Who haven't we heard from yet?
We have heard from everyone that the committee has given us their wishes. That was meeting 1. We've checked all the boxes.
So that's just a meeting for us to talk about potential recommendations?
Your parking lot. Your parking lot. You said you had a list.
It's a short list, but that's good.
I think if we have specific questions that we want Jim or somebody to address, we should get them out to him.
Absolutely. Great.
And then I guess we should be prepared to have overview of the general budget. And, maybe go down to the revenues again and any changes that you might have.
Yeah, I think we're feeling very comfortable with the revenues for the most part. I think time will tell on the jail revenues. We're kind of in that, just a weird spot right now. And if we go one way, we can, if something happens, we find a gigantic hole in the budget. If we go the other way, that means a little bit more tax.
If we recommend
to the
if we recommend the budget as presented, and there is a significant change with federal funding, how does that, is there an amendment that the commissioners bring forth and bring back to the finance committee, and it goes back out to the communities?
I believe, and I will have to double check this, but this is just right off the top of my head, I believe that the finance committee, if you make recommendations on, say, this budget, but the budget gets better, the commissioners are good, they don't have to bring it back. However, if you make recommendations on this budget and the budget, I think, exceeds 10% more or 5% more, maybe it's even 1% more. I mean, 1% on 60 million is a lot of money. Then it has to come back to the finance committee.
So the assessment to the towns could change at a later date then?
The assessment, well, once the budget is passed, and that will either be February 17th, or we might even push it, we've had some conversations of pushing it into like the second week of March, in a special meeting. But I gotta do some connections with some town managers, because you start getting into the beginning of town meetings for some, or managers that are required by their charters to present their preliminary budgets. So there's some timing issues once we get into March.
I was thinking of something happening 6 to 8 months out, something.
I think it's the same as our towns, they're stuck with the budget for the year.
Yeah, we're stuck, county, my understanding is that county government cannot do supplemental budgets.
So just,
And so we can't send you a supplemental bill.
You would have to cut staffing, you would have to make.
Use fund balance, yeah, we
Make
would be in,
adjustments.
we would be in a hurry.
Yeah.
Yep.
so if we go with the conservative budget of whatever could be the 13.7% without the federal revenues, and say, that's the worst case scenario, but we end up getting revenues in the future, like what happens with those revenues?
They most likely would, thanks. One, as you just saw, the jail budget has shifting sands underneath it all the time. You would, if we got any additional revenues, that would probably offset any losses or overexpending the budget.
Mm-hmm.
The jail budget typically does get overspent on an annual basis. We've been just fortunate in the past to have a very healthy federal revenue to offset that. This year, we won't have that healthy revenue, so that it won't be offsetting any losses we have at the jail for overspending, whether it's medical, whether it's food, whether it's wages, overtime. In addition, we won't have any revenue that is being received that exceeds our revenue projections to capitalize our fund balance. So I just made mention that we're taking $600,000 out of fund balance. There's no future game plan to recapitalize that fund balance. It's that fund balance of 2.3 million that we have in the jail budget is there because of the federal revenue exceeding budget estimates over the last number of years. Once that money goes away, we have nothing. And we'll be either drawing off it or raising taxes to cover it.
So that's the pot of money that the 600,000 is being taken out of for the reserve?
Yes.
So the deficit, the loss of the federal funds, that brings the budget to what percent increase? 13?
It would be about 13, 13.70.
And that basically is a contingency plan, because if we do get any federal revenue, great, but if we don't, we've put aside enough for the year.
I feel a lot comfortable at a school budget or a municipal budget, you know, with projections and revenues and,
Trust me, I'm with you.
you know,
This has not been fun budget season.
This is this is new ground for me, and this is my 5th or 6th year here.
It is what it is, right?
And that's, we're just projecting out next year's budget. We could be in a world of hurt this year's budget if we don't get that ICE money in, because we will be $1.2 million behind our revenue estimations.
So how does that, like, what would have to happen? Because I've heard of things in other counties where they had a shortfall and had to go do something. So how does that work?
They want to file for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is you have more than that in the reserve based on the surplus from the marshal's contract in the past. I mean, we're not going to be filing for bankruptcy if we're in that situation.
No, we would probably be looking at taking it out of the unassigned fund balance. And like I just said, it's 2.3 million. We're proposing 600,000 to be taken out as part of this budget. So now we're at 1.7, and the ICE money is 1.2. So if we have to cover that 1.2, now we're down to $500,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
But that's just delayed. So it's, I mean, could the federal government actually say that they're not paying for services that were already rendered and?
No, they couldn't.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
This is another place I think we should, as each and every one of our towns ought to be contacting Senator King and Senator Collins. Jim's working on that, obviously, as well, but we ought to all be, the timing is right, and it's critical right now that we're contacting those senators to get that bill paid. I mean, we've provided the services, they owe us the money, and they're two of the people that should be contacted and encouraged to make sure that bill gets paid. I think it could be very effective if all of our towns contact them and make sure that they know how we feel about that.
I think that's a great idea. We had our council meeting canceled last night, and we're having it tomorrow night, so I'll make sure that that's brought up in our agenda, put on our agenda.
Yeah, because it all affects our town, this affects our town's taxpayers directly, it affects their pockets, just as much as it affects Jim's pocket and the jail's pocket.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Is there anything else from anybody on any?
Yes.
Yes, there is.
Okay, so Jim, you said that we can send you questions for our next meeting. There's a question that's pending from a previous meeting, which is with regard to the Communications Center 911 dispatch, where we have services agreements with particular towns. Are we committed, based on the prior agreements, to only raise their contracts by 3% when the whole thing's going up 15%?
we are not committed. We have, once you brought that up, we went back and Melinda and I have discussed. One of the things that we're trying to figure out is if we raise the next round of contracts, which is a smaller number of contracts for the towns. For some reason, there are towns that are due for a new contract this year, but the majority of the contracts were done last year. And so there's gonna be, if we put, say, 5% in for this year, and the towns that signed last year was at 3%, there's gonna be a inequity between the towns because of that contract. So we're trying to work through that.
When is the next contract for the towns that did it last year?
It's a 3-year contract. And so they've been building them on 3%, which that is not what we're spending these days. I have looked back as far as, I think, back to 2010, 2012-ish, to see what the ratio of revenue to expense has been. And for a number of years, it was 40% of the total expenditures of the dispatch contract were paid through revenue from the towns. The last 2 years, and it might be 2023 and 2025 that I looked at, that went from 40% up to 44%. So there is actually more, as much as it looks.
Is that because there are more towns participating?
I would say in my time here that we have, I believe we added Pownell, which, not a big community. We've added USM Gorham, which they're not paying any dollars, they're doing a tuition reimbursement for our employees. They have a very, very, very low call volume. So we really haven't added too many communities. A lot of the communities had joined on prior to, and I've been here 10 years this summer.
So what explains how they're paying for more of it, even though the expenses have gone up dramatically? I'm sure more than 3%
Yeah, I
a year
haven't
before
dug
we got to
into
this
it.
15%.
Yeah, I have not dug into it that deep yet. I can't tell you that.
If you're keeping notes of like things from the meetings, I don't really have anything from today that I felt like is like
Why
a,
don't I read to you the three that I
Yeah.
have? So we know it's what previously we talked about, thinking about. The first is, when you will remember, the Cumberland County Union Cooperative Extension, thinking of doing something other than flat funding, perhaps going up to the, increasing the grant by $10,000 to cover that salary line of 135. The other was the Registry of Deeds. This may be more of my issue, where they have a vacancy that has been frozen and funded in the budget year over year, just in case a need arises. And my comment to the department head at the time had been like, I don't think that would fly in my town. So I'm just bringing my budget experience forward. And then with regard to the 911 dispatch, determining whether the allocations in the contracts are fair right now, whether they should be increased.
so the way the process could work, we could recommend the budget as presented, but suggest that the commissioners consider those three things as recommendations at this point.
And we could be more specific about what the recommendations are.
Yeah,
Yes.
whether to do something or not, or, yeah.
Or just, instead of just think about this thing.
Yeah. Great.
If there's anybody else who's thought of something that I didn't take note of, please email me and I'll add it to the list so that we have our next meeting. It'll be one of the things we can discuss.
So hopefully we can all be here together in person for the next meeting, and thank you for everybody's attendance tonight. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
I think it would be somebody else.
How does it?
That's perfect. I love that.
They would join.